Alright, welcome back. Hope you're having a good day. Just did an update on my jacaranda yesterday. Figured I'd go ahead and do my Royal Poinciana or Flame Tree today. This is actually the only healthy one I have left in a pot. Let me give you guys a good look at it all the way around here. There it is, kind of leaning towards you a bit. And then, I don't know, one of the most interesting looks at it, I think, is probably when it's leaning towards you. Maybe about in there. You can see a little movement in it and everything. But this is, I probably should have done this first thing in the morning. This is our hottest part of the afternoon. I think it's about 4:30 or so. These leaves were all closed up when I grabbed it. I thought maybe bringing it inside might just get them to relax and open up a little bit. But they actually closed up a little bit more. It's dark in here, obviously. And just mentioning that it was dark in here actually reminded me to turn on the lights. See, they're not really making much of a difference with the leaves either. But I did have 5 of these germinate. When I made my first video, one of them was the runt, and now this is that one. And sorry for the camera shaking and everything. Really not used to using my camera outdoors, but I do have it planted on the ground now. This is sitting on top of a tile. These trees will be 3 years old in July, and that one has been in the ground for just about 2 years. I'd like to think about digging it up soon. I do have it sitting there on top of the tile and everything. So, you know, the whole purpose of having it on the ground is so that I would dig it up one day. The more I look at it, it really got huge. I'm going to have a huge pot for it. And honestly, I don't really know what kind of a need I've got for a Poinciana in a pot that big, but we'll just figure it out. I might give it a heavy chop, say maybe towards the end of our winter, and when I see it start to recover, I might dig it up, or I may just even decide to leave it in the ground and make it a yard tree. Anyhow, because I had 5 at the one point, I went ahead and gave one to a friend too. She gave me a few pictures of this. I planted that in her yard just about a year ago. And then, like I said, this one, and one last look at this one. This one's kind of, you know, the only healthy one left in a pot. The next one I'm going to bring in, I don't really know what's going on with it. It's in a slightly smaller pot than this one. And, well, I'll just talk about that one when I get it in here. I'm going to go ahead and grab it and get it in here. Alright, so that second tree we're going to take a look at today, I repotted. And that was May 25th, I do believe. And today is June 28th. And I figured I'd just, actually even for my own documentation purposes, just show how much this thing even developed since then. And how much it's kind of changed and grown up some. Alright, and then there's this guy. And you can probably see, I mean, I've got 3 sets of leaves out here and 2 over here. And the leaves just always look like this. First thing in the morning, as it gets dark, all day, they just look like this. It actually has a bunch of buds that look like more leaves coming out, but they're just not opening up. A little bud there. It's even a little bud here, and that actually at one point had a really healthy set of leaves coming out. And I even gave some consideration to maybe chopping it off there, starting over again. But even now, that one's all shriveled up. I don't really know what's going on with it. I've tried to put it in a little more shade. This tree should be a full sun tree all day, so when I get my repotting set up in here, I'll kind of explain a little more, and we'll just go ahead and take a look at that. And before I do get a look, I probably should have mentioned, I hate to lose this one, simply because it's got some interesting movement, kind of the way it came out of the seed and grew into itself there in the pot. And then just the one piece of advice, I mean, I've been pretty good at growing these things, but with these tropicals, they'll grow as a seedling and they will seem just so flimsy, and you're like, well, I don't want to put any wire on that, it's so delicate. And then just next thing you know, it is just lignified, and it would be nearly impossible to get a good bend out of that. They really aren't like a pine or anything like that. And they kind of get almost like a little bit of a succulent where they'll snap if you try to do too much. And then just before I switched over to this, I said I was gonna talk about this some. And you can see just how black that soil is, and it's still kind of damp. It's just really, when I said I checked the drainage, you know, I mean, I water heavily almost every day. This time of year is very hot. We haven't had rain in a long time. And it always just drains right through. No problem, it drains right through. But this is a dense mat of smaller roots. I don't really see any big tap roots or anything like that. I might see one as soon as I get in here. But then also, like I said, very wet. It's like 5 in the afternoon, 5:15, something like that. And I have not watered since yesterday afternoon. I'm still, school's still in, and I have no choice but to just kind of keep an afternoon watering schedule. I switched to the mornings once school is out. But I don't want to do a rough repot because it's not super healthy. So I'm just going to take out as many of these black roots as I can without getting too deep into anything. If I ever really want to really work it one day, I can. Hard to tell whether I had this in all organics, and I just, well, no, there's definitely a good mix of soil the more I get towards the top. Not much to it towards the top there. Since there's not much to it, I had one size up bowl pan ready to go in. But I'm actually thinking just getting it in some better substrate back into this same pot might be what's best for it right now. No sense in overpotting it. I'll be repotting it again in a couple years anyway. Alright, I'm going to let that settle back in and we'll see what that looks like. Alright, and here we are a couple months later. And see the leaves are open quite a bit more. They're kind of facing up a little bit, so it's a little hard to see, but they definitely are open up a little bit more. I can tell this thing is going to recover nicely. Looking so much more healthier than it was when I did do the repot. I think I pointed out that it even had this little stub down here that I was hoping would come to life. And it actually has. The leaves are open this morning and hit there and everything. And then before we end here, I did just want to do this real quick. This is growing right on the trunk, and you can even see, I'm not sure what that is. I've seen it before. It's not algae. It's like some kind of phlegm that comes like off of the moss, kind of between the moss and the root ball. But if I let that go, that may start coming up the trunk. So I'm just going to take these tweezers here. Pull that off there. And I think there's a little bit on the other side too. All right. And there's that little healthy shoot there I was talking about. If I had, maybe 5, 6 of these, I'm down to only 2 in the pot now, so I don't really want to experiment too much, but I'd consider chopping it right there. If this thing really does turn into a good viable branch, perhaps maybe next spring, I may try to go ahead and chop right there. That'll really create some taper down low. I'd want to make sure that that is going to survive as a branch, not just a weak little leaf there first, though, especially since I only have a couple.